Welcome to Monday through Friday, Cellular Agriculture for a Pandemic-Free Future. My name is George Ortega. This is episode number 38, and I'm recording it on Thursday, August 27th at 10:53 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to try to be positive during this presentation, present a picture of how we can create a much more wonderful world by transitioning from farming animals to cellular agriculture. Before that, I do that, I just want to present two kinds of, two facts, I guess. One that I learned today, the other is, I just want to recap what I said yesterday, really. I was on a YouTube, Facebook seminar with Dr. Greger earlier today, Dr. Michael Greger. He's an expert in pandemics. He's written a book called Bird Flu, and his most recent one is called How to Survive a Pandemic. He's testified before Congress. He's basically been, telling us for decades that this is going to happen and we should prepare. So let me just share the screen, though. I want to share my screen, and so, like, again, for the people who are listening to this on a podcast, in iTunes or Spotify or one of the other platforms, you're not going to be missing anything, because I'm going to just be saying what people are seeing. So this is the video, and it's about an hour long. He basically goes through the history of how domestication, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, domestication of cows, chickens, goats, sheep, horses, just resulted in all these pandemics we know today. So the title of the video is called Pandemics, History and Prevention. And again, it's about an hour long. It's on YouTube. And he published this himself. His website is called nutritionfacts.org. Now, Dr. Greger is a true humanitarian. He basically, he gives all the profits away from his books and from his work to charity. He's doing this for the good of it. So, I have a great deal of admiration for him. So check this video out to get, really kind of much more of a detailed scientific understanding of what's happening than I've been presenting. And so yeah, now what he said, what he said earlier tonight on this talk, YouTube, Facebook talk, according to the CDC, our next, risk of a pandemic is a kind of a bird flu, 100 times more deadly than this coronavirus. It kills 40% of its victims rather than about one or two. If I just said that, it is like so late. I've just had a really, really long day. It's been a good day, but I think I may have repeated myself. Whatever. All right. One other thing I want to share, because the other thing is, like, I tried this twice. This is my third take on this. So I know I said it 2 times. I don't know if I said it 3. All right. I want to just share my screen again to just show you this graph, this table that I created right before yesterday's episode. And if you're on, YouTube, I mean iTunes or Spotify with the audio version, you're not going to miss anything on this either, because I'm going to, this is the number of common era epidemics by millennium, century, decade, and year. And you'll see during the first 1,300 years, okay, from 000, day one of the first millennium, of the common era, to 1,300. There were only, actually, we can go to 1,500. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, 11 epidemics, in 1,500 years, and then, the epidemics start increasing from 1,500 to 1,600. You have 11 in that century alone. And that was, of course, because of, the prevalence of explorations. They're exploring the New World from Europe, and they discovered America, and all this. So as I showed you yesterday, the 1600s had 24 pandemics, the 1700s had 33. I mean, epidemics. It's an important distinction. The 1800s had 55. Okay, now then you see the rest of the figures, but what I want to just point your attention to is this 100 years between 1800 and 1900, we have 55 pandemics. Now look here from 2000 to 2010, 1 decade, 2 decades ago, we have 40, okay? And let's add this up again, 4, 9, 13, 18, 28, this last decade. And it's expected to get worse as our population grows. It's going to go from about 7.5 billion today to about 9.5 to 10 billion by 2050. Our airline travel, there's about 4 billion passenger flights every year. That'll probably go up by each decade into the future. So the point being that these pandemics are not one in 100 year events. They are developing with increasing frequency and increasing sometimes strength, lethality. All right, so I understand that it's important for you to hear that, so you can understand the threat, so you can appreciate the threat. It's a threat comparable to, in a certain sense, climate change. And then the other major threat we have is antibiotic resistance. We rely on our antibiotics to protect us. When we have operation, surgery, and all, it's a standard procedure to use antibiotics. The problem is here in the United States, 80% of the antibiotics we use are used in factory farming. And the problem with that is that the bacteria are developing antibiotic resistance. They're mutating, protecting themselves, so the antibiotics we have been using, a lot of them don't work anymore. And again, 80% of our use in Lyme, they're overprescribed in medicine for human beings, but the fact that 80% of them are used in animal farms because the conditions are so unsanitary, that tells you a lot. And the takeaway from all this, of course, is that if we're going to have a reasonable chance, and what we can really achieve is not just a reasonable chance, but a really, really good chance, a 95% chance plus, perhaps 99+% chance. We're going to have to end the farming of animals, and so let's start from there. I mean, let's start with what a gift that would be to our children. We don't have the will yet to properly fight climate change. So what we're handing our children is really, a devastating future. But maybe we can turn that around. The climate change fight, we're going to be in for decades, okay? We have to stop emitting as much greenhouse gases, hopefully sequester some of the carbon dioxide that's out there, some of the methane, and just transition to clean energy, to become carbon neutral, and just actually use stop using fossil fuels, stop using greenhouse gas. Right? But all right, what that would take, that's expected to take decades, whereas what I'm proposing, what this series is proposing, can take as few as like 3 years. And, I've gone through this, I've explained how, the fastest that a vaccine had ever been brought to market and used was in response to the 1957 pandemic. And it took them 4 years. And ordinarily it takes 10, 20, 30 years. We still don't have a vaccine for HIV AIDS. And so as we're seeing, the Russians and the Chinese are fast tracking their research. So they're bypassing the stage 3 clinical trials, which, many doctors are warning is not wise. But between that and just investing, the funds and then these pharmaceuticals investing the time and resources to find the vaccine, there's over, I think there's way over 100 candidates or, companies trying to do this. We will probably have a vaccine within a year or a year and a half instead of 4 years or 10 or 20. So the point being, if we can do that, develop a vaccine so quickly just by pumping money into it, which is essentially what we're doing, just by having the will to do it, then certainly the challenges that face our scientists, our biologists, with respect to scaling up cellular agriculture. So instead of growing meat in labs and Petri dishes, just proving the concept now and basically showing that it works in labs, scaling it up to where we can produce millions of pounds of chicken, beef, pork, fish in a way that not only is completely harmless to animals, that's a godsend, but it keeps us virtually completely free of pandemics. And if we can do that, we can do that in 3 years. The challenges to do that are far, far less great. And so, what I've been advocating is $50 billion to be released, during Biden's first term, his first year, so that in 3 years, we can have this done. Now imagine, you have to think of, in order to appreciate how wonderful this would be, you have to appreciate what we would have to do to have it happen. Okay, in terms of the technology, they have to figure out, basically much of the challenge is to bring the process down in cost so that the prices are comparable to the meat and dairy and eggs we now buy in supermarkets that come from animals. So there's what's known as scaffolding challenges, and there's media challenges. The media is like the food that they feed these cells so they continue to replicate and multiply and grow, and that's how we create this meat. So those are some of the challenges. And then the other challenges, those are biological. And my point is, we can do those probably here in the United States or, in the rich countries, we can meet those challenges in 2-3 years, again, pumping $50 billion into it, getting a lot of young, really bright biologists and engineers and chemists, working on this, showing them the importance of this to the world, inspiring them to get involved in this. But that's just one part of it. Imagine the other part of it. So, here's the, and I've said this before, in order to be free of pandemics in the future, like we want to be, I guarantee that, a year from now, when people, see the devastation this has caused, the Congressional Budget Office estimates it's going to cost us $8 trillion, and again, that 50 billion I'm suggesting we spend is just 1% of that. So when people put everything together, consider this damage, they're really going to want, especially business people, some kind of assurance. The industries and the restaurant industry, the travel industry, they're going to want as much of an assurance as they can get that, that they don't spend 5 years investing a lot money in, let's say, these new companies, these new businesses, and so many businesses are going bankrupt and out of business now. You know, they will want some assurance that this isn't going to happen again. And so, yeah, the only assurance we can give them is to transition from farming animals to cellular agriculture. And my point here is that it will have to involve every country in the world, rich, middle income, and poor. So again, think of the effort that will be involved, the cooperation, probably through the United Nations. That's what the United Nations does. It basically motivates and provides the infrastructure, the institutions to bring the world together on the world's problems rather than on individual problems of various nations. That will be a monumental undertaking. You know, every country in the world is going to have to be on board with this. And so again, imagine we'll have done this in 3 years. So we'll have gotten the cooperation of every country. And with the poor countries, yes, we rich countries who have more money than we know what to do with a lot of times, you know, notwithstanding what our politicians sometimes try to tell us. Yes, we would absolutely help them to build the factories, to get them going, which would be a plus for us also, because to the extent we can do that, and they can, like, because many of these poor countries can't afford to eat meat now. You know, that's one of the reasons that there's malnutrition, and for children under 5, they die at a rate of almost 10 million a year. You know, not just because of poor nutrition, but not enough medicine. But anyway, the point is that, yes, this is what we will be doing. This is what we will have done in 3 years if we pump $50 billion into this new industry starting in February, March. You know, and I'm not saying release it, you know, let's say 10 billion this year, another 10 billion next year. I'm talking about the entire 50 billion, just like, you know, we did for the stimulus packages, where we spent over 2 trillion, probably close to 3. And again, you know, probably be spending more than that before this is done. So think about it. Think about what that will look like. The people, because there are some people in the world who have been for decades resisting this kind of global cooperation, this kind of global coming together. Their arguments are going to be overridden. And that includes, you know, these quote unquote rogue nations like North Korea, you know, pretty much will find a way to get everyone on board because it's going to be in their interest also. You know, so imagine we get this done. The diplomacy, the economic funding of it, the politics. We get this done, and in 3 years, you know, we can, like, our scientists can tell us that, you know, there are virtually no outbreaks happening in the world. You know, because like these outbreaks generally happen for 3 reasons: the farming, not just factory farming, but also family farming, you know, and the farming includes the wet markets, you know, livestock. What we will also have to do is another part of this threat comes from encroaching on the rainforests and the wilderness. You know, we'll have to probably manage that much better, because that's another major contributor to this. But, you know, we do that. And again, so the infectious disease experts tell us that, and I've got to do some research. I'll you know, hopefully soon have figures on not how many epidemics we've had each year and each decade and century and millennium, but how many outbreaks we have each year, because I have a feeling the number is, you know, a bit scary. You know, people don't realize we had an outbreak here in the United States in one of the Carolinas on a pig farm earlier this year, that they had to slaughter 30,000 pigs to contain that. And any one of these outbreaks can travel, can turn into an epidemic, which can turn into a pandemic. So like, it's like we're playing Russian roulette the way it is now. And we don't want to do that. So we get this done. 3 years from now, people are sighing a huge sigh of relief, finally. And maybe, just maybe because of that, because we will have shown ourselves what we can do when we set our minds to it, just like the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project, as you may recall, was our American effort to create a nuclear bomb. And it wasn't a worldwide effort, but we employed about 130,000 people toward that effort. And it was really, it was done in a matter of a year or two, it was very fast-tracked. So this would be a global Manhattan Project, not just the United States, the entire country getting together on this. So imagine what our world will look like, month after month, with reporters reporting not the conflict between countries, not the bad news that they so ordinarily, pummel us with, what's wrong with the world, but how the world is becoming much, much cooperative, much better at solving our problems. So we're experiencing this, month after month for the next couple of years, 2-3 years. And you have to consider that as we're going through that process, we are coming to understand how very powerful we are collectively, how much we can do that in the past we didn't think we could do. It will restore for us hope, great hope, that we don't have to fear the future as our scientists do now, especially because of climate change and antibiotic resistance and these pandemics. It will give our world this shot of enthusiasm, shot of optimism that is sorely needed. And that again, that could be just the beginning. This could be how we show the world what we can do when we set not just our minds to this, but our hearts to this. Remember, this is about ending an institution, this factory farming institution that seems easily more horrible than what happened in the Holocaust or during slavery. And again, if you doubt that, if someone were to ask you, well, you have a choice between being in one of those 3 situations, I guarantee you wouldn't pick being in an animal farm. It's a horrible, practice. So imagine how good people will feel about ending that. It will inspire people to take on climate change, to take on, education and malnutrition and income inequality and, all these other problems that we have that so many quote unquote experts tell us are not manageable now. Those kind of arguments just would not resonate very well once, as we're putting together this effort to end pandemics, virtually end them. The news reporters will say, well, 10 years ago, what we've been doing would have been unthinkable, yet we're doing it and we're succeeding with it. And let's say it's going, faster than scheduled, So I think we need to approach this not just from, it's like the carrot and the stick, not just from the threat that really it's, the epidemiologists tell us it's not a matter of if, but when, the threat of the next pandemic, or even the fear, could like, we either live in fear of the next pandemic, and that can't feel that good, especially for business people, or we live experiencing the next pandemic. Okay, and it's just not, it's not a world we want to live in. So yes, that's the carrot. That's the stick of it. Sorry. and the carrot is that, let's not, we don't have to look at that, from the threat perspective completely all the time. Just let's see the positivity that can be created. Again, the basic theme is, so many people will say to you, this can't be done. This can't be done when it comes to, countries of the world cooperating to end poverty, to end conflict, military conflict. I mean, there's a lot of problems we have, and people say, oh no, that we don't have that level of cooperation. Well, this project within a few short years can show the world that yes, we do. We have created this level of cooperation. We can create a model where we expand it beyond preventing pandemics, because every country in the world will know that it's in their best interest to participate in this. And of course, we're going to have to do this. It's interesting because this is like a dress rehearsal for addressing climate change. The experts say, yeah, we can't address climate change. It's not going to happen. It's like, it's over. That's what many experts tell us. It's just, we can't contain it anymore. We can't mitigate it anymore. It's just a matter of addressing it, just, trying to alleviate it. So perhaps we can prove them wrong, because, basically they're making their assessments on a business as usual scenario. So, all right, again, your job will be to do the research and talk to people, talk to politicians especially. Let's get this effort into these elections. Let's make both parties. The Republicans are by far the worst on this, but the Democrats really aren't that good either. You have to, otherwise the conditions wouldn't be, as bad as they are, and nobody's talking about it. So let's get this into this, as an issue in this election. Let's get this done. All right, got about a minute left. So again, catch this every Monday through Friday on White Plains Community Media, channel 76. And I wanted to mention that if you get channel 45 Verizon, this is also shown in Scarsdale and Hartsdale and Ardsley and, Tarrytown, other area communities through Verizon. Okay, so it's around Westchester. And but otherwise, you can catch the video episodes on YouTube. I upload them all to YouTube. And as of several days ago, they're on Spotify as audio versions, and on on iTunes and other, podcast platforms. So, all right. So again, now my job will be to better create a positive scenario for this. I'm running out of time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again Monday, God willing.